Joining us now from the Pakistani capital is political analyst Javed Rana. Javed, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Umar.
Javed, Hamas has accepted a truce proposal, but Israel is insisting on fully occupying Gaza City. Do you think that these plans will undermine the truce proposals?
Well, Israel, the apartheid state, has obviously backed out its commitment because these are the terms and conditions on which Israel, by and large, had agreed on. Now, somehow the other, Egypt and Qatar, has managed to compel Hamas to accept these conditions. Hamas has accepted it. Apparently, for Israel, there is no other option but to agree on the ceasefire because these were the terms and conditions which were previously agreed upon. Now, nonetheless, we have seen that Israel has intensified its aggression and genocidal campaign on Gaza City. We are seeing that dozens of people every day are being killed. And that is obviously shows a greater plan of expelling Palestinians from rest of the part of the Gaza. Now, in the broader picture, there are now two possibilities. One possibility is that within the next couple of days, there is a possibility that Israel may agree on to this ceasefire because Israel will have always a leverage to breach the ceasefire agreement during the so-called possible enforcement and after 60 days, which means there would be lease of life for Palestinians for 60 days, and after 60 days, there would be again a resumption of the genocide. Now, domestic scene in Israel is as such that if he goes for a ceasefire agreement, that means at least he would be managing to get back half of the captives from the custody of Hamas. And right now, there are around 20 to 25 prisoners of war in custody of Hamas. And there are dead bodies of the others. And they've been killed none other than by Israel. So again, Netanyahu will have something to show to the public, and he may go for a by-election. That is one option. But again, we have to see the broader picture. The broader picture is that Netanyahu, in a recent interview, said that he feels very much quote unquote, spiritually connected with the greater Israel plan. I think that explains everything. Israel has already put in place everything in terms of settlements in Gaza, in terms of negotiating with the many countries, including South Sudan, to basically forcibly repatriate Palestinians from Gaza to there. So at this particular point of time, this acceptance of Hamas, this ceasefire agreement, is essentially exposing Israel's greater game plan. And I think within the next couple of days, it will be loud and clear that to what an extent this proposal, which has already been accepted, would go into the corridors of the power in Israel. Will it accept it, or will it find another justification, which there are some reports suggesting that now Israel is demanding essentially releasing of all the captives from the custody of Hamas. And if that happens, which means Hamas would lose whatever the little leverage it has in its hands, because once all these captives are handed back to Israel, that means the scale of aggression, the scale of the genocide in Gaza City would further expand, would further intensify, and I think that will be a terrible scenario which we can possibly foresee.
Javed, tell me about the role that the Egyptian government has played and the Qatari government has been playing. We've seen that the Egyptian government was criticized for not opening the Rafah crossing, and then we've seen how the Qatari delegation has been in close contact with the Israelis. Tell me about their role.
Well, I see basically Egypt as a part of this conflict. It's a part and parcel of the problem. I see Qatar is a different player. Qatar has played smartly whatever it could have done in its tiny capacity. It has limitations of its influence. It has used its media network, Al Jazeera network, which has played a very critical role in shaping the world opinion about the genocide of Palestinians. And on this particular issue of basically facilitating some kind of ceasefire agreement, of previously there were two similar agreements, which I would call them very faulty agreements. Qatar had facilitated, and now Qatar's role is something which everybody acknowledges. But again, this is not going to cause a long-lasting impact because the world powers are not involved. The European Union is not involved. Britain is not involved. France is not involved. More particularly, the US is not involved. Europe is a silent partner in these crimes, and the US is obviously very overtly supporting the genocide in Gaza. So again, we have already seen that when it comes to the Ukraine, all the European leaders, they rush to Washington. They make it sure that some sort of relief is obtained on Ukraine. But again, when it comes to Palestine, when it comes to Gaza, nobody is bothered about. At least some countries are doing something in the Gulf, and I would single out Qatar. I would not give credit to Egypt, because had Egypt some sympathies with Palestinian people, it could have done a lot. There are smuggling routes deep inside. There are tunnels. I think those could have been opened, and the food supplies could have been restored there. So that did not happen. And there are a lot of complaints that the Palestinians who are refugees in Egypt, they are making a lot of complaints. Anyway, in a broader context, I think the Saudi Arab is very much silent. Saudi Arab is looking for some kind of face saving where it can normalize diplomatic ties with Israel. Saudi Arab is also part of the problem. It has been facilitating trade, Israeli trade, from Red Sea to Jordan, and from Jordan to West Bank, and then to the mainland Israel. So again, the Arab countries, with few exceptions, are a part of the problems and not part of the solution.
Javed, on Sunday, we saw that Israelis were protesting against Netanyahu. Around 1 million Israelis protested across the country, asking and demanding Netanyahu to bring the hostages back home. Do you think that this pressure is going to impact Netanyahu's decision-making?
Well, that is a possibility that this could possibly impact, because the life of one Israeli citizen is far more important than the Palestinians. Maybe the entire Palestinian population is less important than the life of the Israeli citizen. That has been the tradition. That has been the track record. Whenever there has been negotiation in the past, before this October 7, 2023 military operation of Hamas, there was somewhat similar situation. Israel was, in one case, released 1,000 Palestinian prisoners in return of one Israeli soldier. So again, in that context, I think this pressure could possibly work. But we have to understand that there is also very strong perception in Israel that Netanyahu simply does not care about these protests. He simply does not care about the captives in custody of Hamas. He cares about the greater plan where he can expand Israel's boundaries, and he's been proudly saying that under his administration he has been expanding the boundaries of Israel. But again, this is a kind of situation where Netanyahu is under pressure, and Netanyahu can possibly play out that he may go for a ceasefire agreement. And that means that if that happens, then there is also a possibility that he could also announce by elections, and then he can showcase to the people in Israel that he has managed to secure the release of captives. But again, the problem right now is this, that the Hamas is not willing to release all of the prisoners of war. And that is the bigger problem, because for Israel it is a bigger problem. And for Hamas, if it releases all of the captives, that means the leverage that it has been using to negotiate, that would be all over. So again, it's a kind of situation where for extremist, pathological liar Netanyahu, for him, there are very difficult choices to make, because once 10 prisoners of war are released, then the pressure domestically would also build up on him to secure the release of the other 10. So again, we don't know at this particular point of time what is going to be the decision, but both possibilities exist.
Javed, let's talk about starvation, because we've been seeing over the past weeks how people have been killed while queuing in lines for humanitarian aid, and then aid that is being dropped is also killing Palestinians. Some Palestinians are going to recover their loved ones who have been killed. They're being bombed. Why is this policy continuing?
Well, that is the second biggest source of the death in Gaza. As many as 250 to 60 people have died. That is something which is on the record. But my understanding is that what we don't know that how many people have died not directly because of starvation, but because of the starvation which caused many diseases, which caused malnutrition, particularly among children. How many of them have died? That is, again, this is something which is underreported. And how many people have died who could not reach to the hospital? And I don't think Hamas is in a position in Gaza right now where it can collect every figure, every statistic of the people who are dying because of hunger, people who are dying because of starvation, people who are dying who are thirsty, people who are dying because they are drinking seawater, which is obviously causing huge health problems. So again, these statistics are underreported. Even the very statistics of the people who have been killed in this genocide, that is officially it is around 62,000. But there are now reports, credible reports, suggesting that the people who are under the rebels, they are still uncounted afar, and that number could runs into hundreds of thousands. So again, it is a very terrible situation that the Gaza has been going through, and the world is the least bothered about. All we see, the kind of the reaction that we see, that is on the social media, that is a protest largely in the Western world, that is a sometime protest in the Turkey and in Iran, and even the rest of the Muslim world is sleeping. I think this is a terrible situation. There is no concern in the Muslim countries, more particularly among the Arab countries, the kind of the concern that is being displayed in Europe for the Ukraine. Again, for Europe, Ukraine is far more important. Why for Arab countries, Gaza is not that important? Don't they share the same race? Don't they share the same religion? And so goes for the Muslims. Don't they share the same religion? Don't they share the same values? Are they waiting for themselves when their turn is going to be there? You may recall that just a couple of days ago, now Jordan has announced that it is going to make it binding upon every citizen after between 20 and 50 to have some kind of military training. What is the reason? The reason is Netanyahu's interview, that when he said that he is spiritually feel connected for the expansion of Israel, the greater Israel plan. Now these Arab countries have started realizing, but again, these Arab countries are essentially satellite states of the West and by extension of Israel. They would not do anything meaningful for the Palestinians.
Javed, thank you for that analysis. It was a pleasure having you on the program today.
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.